Oh, I know. Okay, so that was
Hi, as you said, my name is Shannon Primer. I'm a special education paralegal. I mainly thought I was going to take the class to protect my child's rights. He's going to be 19 on September 1st. I now have a huge clientele of not just severely disabled children like mine. Half my clients are mental health. So when you hear them talking about mental health, they're also talking about the kids who already had problems and we're now adding to it. Many of my clients' kids have social issues. We have social skills written into their IEPs. It is impossible to follow those IEP rules and those goals if our kids are not at school. My son has not had any education since we left school in middle of March. He had 3 days of ESY before they shut us back down. And honestly, his behaviors are going up. So for a severely disabled child like mine, losing every day of school may cost him in the future where he's put into a day program. It may cost him what kind of residential place he will be able to live in, because his behaviors are going out of control. My husband is a CTA member, he is a teacher. My husband is at home watching our disabled child, and he's called his own CTA rep and said he thinks our children need to go back to school. I should include that my husband is considered high risk. My husband has health issues, including congestive heart failure. My husband is not afraid to go back. He wants to be back with his children. He wants to be there. My husband takes the most amount of children with IEPs in his department because of what I do for a living. Because he knows if I see him on a federal stand and he's not obeying those IEPs, he might as well not come home. It's a very, very strict rule. For those of you who don't know me also, I'm not here as a representative of Educate Advocate, but I am on a disability charities board. This is about my 40th trip up here on disability rights alone, and I live in Oceanside, California, which is in San Diego. And the majority of my trips here are on my own dime, and I just want to stress again how important this is for our kids to go back to school. And I should include, I do represent one child who has major health issues. I am not opposed to people staying home and doing distance learning if they so desire. It is a parent's right, not the government's right, to make a decision what is appropriate for their children. And for my one client whose family cannot handle any virus, let alone this one, which is or may not be a big issue. Can't see me, I rolled my eyes there. But I don't mind that client's family staying home. I actually was on an IEP with them last week, advocating for the fact that I don't want that child moved to our virtual learning academy in Carlsbad Unified, because I'm afraid if he gets better enough and we have open schools that he will be stuck there for a year. Because that's what Carlsbad Unified is saying. If you choose the online option, you cannot change your mind until the end of the year. This particular child also has autism and social issues. So if it gets better and it's safe for him to go to school, I want that option open. I advocate for every single child like they're my own. I have at least 2 of my clients' children in this crowd right here. And one of them is a little girl who we were told she couldn't possibly ever do like gen ed, that she should go to a severely handicapped classroom, which I firmly disagreed with. And on her psych ed report, it clearly said that she did fine with behaviors when there were gen ed kids near her and had full conversations. But they still told us that they should keep her in a more restrictive environment. And I said, no, I see by middle school, I expect her to be in gen ed with her peers. And her parents looked at me and said they had never thought that. But I saw it, and I swear that child will be back in gen ed as soon as we get her behaviors under control. Because I believe she belongs with her peers, just like my child does. And with my child, he does not understand change. So For him, it was a really big deal to try to go back to school. He was very excited the first week, but they only offered us 2 days. He also doesn't understand that you can go to a building and not go in. When we take my husband, who does not drive, to doctor's appointments, I have to sit in the car with him. Anybody who knows me, I've been up here a million times, I do not hide my bruises. When I say I worry about his behavior and him losing his placement, every day we are missing is a day he cannot get back. So I will agree with everybody else here. Once upon a time, these people said they no longer wanted those people here. As a government teacher's wife, I want to remind you, those people pay their salaries. Our school board members, same thing. We pay their salaries. They work for us. So if you've never done politics before, and I will say Jonathan has not really done politics before, but he's seen the problem. Now's the time to get your friends and families who feel the same way to step up and ask to go back to school. Thank you. I am allowed to speak about most of my clients also because it's in my contract that if I go to the Capitol and there's something I see as a need, that they're allowed to. Can you say hi, Ava?
Woo! Go, Ava!
Hi. This is my child who's going to be in Gen Ed by middle school because I have a vision for her. I fight for her just like I fight for my own child. So again, I forget also what I was going to say. Then our next speaker, and I will probably crucify her name because I have auditory processing issues, so she will correct me when she gets up here, is also a CTA member. She is a teacher in an elementary school. Paula, say it. Paula Husovsky. So here she is to come speak next.
Good afternoon. So my name is Paula Husovsky. I'm a teacher from Sacramento, California, which is in Riverside County. And yes, on the way up, we're ended on the I-5 at a complete stop.
It's our redhead, right?
A little shaky today. I apologize. So I'm up here just to explain to you as a teacher, what we went through when the schools went into closure. On March 13th, just a couple hours before the school day was to end, our school district finally announced that they were going to close. As teachers, we were scrambling to figure out what are we going to do. Well, this is just going to be an extended spring break. They should be back to school within 3 weeks. So we teach around the pod and we popped our heads out the classroom doors and we said, okay, we're supposed to send them home with some consumables. What do we send home? So we looked at our benchmark curriculum and we said we're going to go ahead and send them home with Unit 8. We haven't started that unit. Some are finishing up Unit 7, so we'll send them home with their fresh unit at Unit 8. And then we sent them home their math books. And then later we received notification, we couldn't teach. You cannot provide new instruction because not all children will have access to the curriculum and it would be unfair. So we were like, what do we do? And then of course, as the governor continued to extend the shutdown, we fought and said, we can't do this. We have to be able to teach. My district did a phenomenal job at preparing online curriculum. The Curriculum Mapping and Assessment Committee worked their asses off to make sure that we had curriculum available for these children. So they provided it online. We did not have enough Chromebooks for every child to have their own Chromebook. So then they went ahead and they printed out the same materials in packets and the parents were able to pick them up when they picked up their meals at school grounds. Phenomenal job my district did. In fact, other families were coming to me and they were complaining that they didn't like the curriculum that they got from their district, and I showed them how to access my district website and obtain curriculum for their children. Later on, our district went through and they said, okay, this is how we're going to teach you. We're going to do some online instruction. We're going to show you how you can set up a Google Class page, how you can access Google Meets to teach your children from home, your students from home. Well, the day of my Google Meets training, my internet was down. So fortunately, I was able to talk to another homeschool teacher and she was able to set me up and show me how to access the Google Meets for my children. But we were scrambling. Our HTA president worked very diligently and hard to try to work with the school district to set up teacher expectations because we didn't know what we could and couldn't teach. Do you know how sad that is to know that you could get in trouble for teaching children because not all children would have access to the curriculum? It's heartbreaking. It's scary, and you're just in there going, oh my goodness. And then I couldn't get my children to participate in my class. So for Cinco de Mayo, I went out and I spent $300 on craft projects for Cinco de Mayo and for Mother's Day. And I put on my mask and my gloves, and I dropped craft projects off at every child's house. It was like Christmas time. I had kids waiting till 10 o'clock at night to receive their projects from me. The next day, I had 18 kids online for Cinco de Mayo, and they had these little, I had sent them home with plastic I sent them, in their packet contained plastic Easter eggs with beans that they could make homemade maracas out of. Coordinated it with the music teacher, and we got online, and we were able to play a Cinco de Mayo song, and they were able to play around with their maracas. Do you know what it's like to have 18 children on Google Meet? Insane. Totally and completely insane. Not an ideal way of teaching it anyway. So we, later on, I had kids jumping on and off, 5 to 6 kids a day. But this is some of the things that my families had faced. We have a unique demographics in Hemet. So we have affluent families. Affluent families, they were able to find tutors to tutor their children during a COVID pandemic. And they were able to pay and afford for therapies for their children so that their children didn't go without during these school closures. And then we had the essential working families, and they were trying to figure out how they're going to maintain their jobs and educate their own children at home. And they were stressed out and had families saying they're treating this like it's a vacation. And she said, and she's just single mom, just struggling to educate her children. And then we also had the working poor, and you're talking working poor, working multiple jobs, working poor. And they just gave up, and their children got absolutely nothing. And we're just widening the gap between affluent families and other children that are from working poor families. And it's really, really sad as a teacher. So I am not scared to go back to the classroom. Our children belong in the classroom. And we do have teachers that are scared to go back to work. They really, truly are scared, and they're not lazy. They take the online education very seriously. They're doing the best job that they can with it. And they want to teach, but they are scared to go back to the classroom. We also have some teachers that are trying to figure out, how am I going to teach from home and babysit my children, let alone homeschool them too? And those teachers are looking at daycare options for their children, especially if we are supposed to do our online instruction from our classroom. So we're looking, well, we have to put our school-age children in daycare centers with other essential workers. Shouldn't they be in a classroom receiving an education? What are we thinking? What are we thinking? This is total insanity. So yes, and not only that, they are converting some classrooms into daycare centers. Come on, people. Our kids deserve an education, and it doesn't, and parents, our district went to such odds to try to make sure that they could accommodate these families. I know our districts, in Marietta, they offered 3 different learning models for parents. They could do full online instruction, they could do full in-class instruction, and they could do a combination of online and in-class instruction. And the governor didn't care. He still shut us down, and it's not okay. It's not okay. So yes, children belong in school, education, is essential.